Good morning, Martin Beisenheimer here with best-selling author, keynote speaker, and entrepreneur Andrea Waltz. So happy to have Andrea joining us here today. It's really a pleasure. I've been following her work for quite some time now and really admired everything that her and her husband Richard Fenton have been up to. If you're not familiar, they have done what in my mind is some of the most important work around psychology in selling. And to get things started, we're going to dive deeper into Andrea's background and how her book Go for No came to be. But to start us off, Andrea, if you could tell us a little bit about the concept. And every great book, in my opinion, makes a bold claim, and yours is really that most of us, especially in sales and entrepreneurship, we tend to go about business building in reverse order. Whereas what I mean by that is we tend to avoid rejection. We tend to try to avoid failure. And your claim that we can actually get better results by reversing that. And I just want, if you could spell out briefly, what do you mean by Go for No?
Yes, you are exactly right. It is a very counterintuitive, bold claim. We teach people to intentionally increase their failure rate, to go out and intentionally hear no more often at any stage. So this could be if you're just starting out in your business and you want to get yeses, we say you need to start hearing no more often. And even for the most successful people out there, sometimes they can become complacent. And to them, we say, go out and start getting bigger no's, right? Just get lots of no's from things that you would think would be impossible or challenging or difficult. So yeah, it is a counterintuitive phrase because people hear go for no and they think, go for no, why would I ever want to go for no? But it is in the seeking of those no's that's where all of the yeses are found.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I found most intriguing when I first came upon this work was that you were claiming that not only should we be striving to hear the word no more often, but that we should be changing how we think about it and how we respond to the rejection or the word no, and that over time, we can actually change our mindset and start to embrace and actually, feel good when we hear the word no. And that really kind of floored me the first time I thought about that. But I've played with it a lot in my own business and have seen the power behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you are feeling bad when you hear no in your business, then because statistically there are so many no's. I mean, it's just like a baseball player. If a baseball player felt bad and depressed every time that they struck out, and of course we know that the best hitters are hitting 3 out of 10, then they're going to feel bad a lot of times. And then so playing the game and trying to get better at the game and sticking with the game is going to be very difficult, right? It's going to be a battle, a fight. And that is not a great life. And so if you can start feeling good about the no's, which is how you think about them, how you interpret that rejection, how you deal with that rejection, how you respond to it, then you can start feeling good. And when you're feeling good, everything else starts to fall in place, right? Your confidence continues to be able to grow. You stick with things. You work on improving all of your other skills. And so it really builds upon it, but it all has to do with feeling good about those no's.
It makes complete sense. Yeah, when you really stop and think about it, it seems very sensible. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of this work. How did it all come to be? For those who maybe aren't familiar with Go for No, this is not a new concept. This book has been out now. I think it was around the year 2000 that you and Richard started getting, putting this all together. Tell us a little bit more about how it got to.
Yes. So yeah, it was not exactly an overnight success. We published it in 2000 before there was even Amazon around to publish it. And we hit #1 on Amazon's sales and selling list in 2010. So it only took 10 years.
10-year overnight success.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to tell you, embarrassingly, we gave up on this book many times. We quit on it and wanted to quit on it, and we just, though, had faith and forced ourselves to keep going. But it all started because we launched our business. We left our corporate jobs in 1998, started a business doing speaking and training for retailers. Go for No was one of the things of many things that we were teaching. That was one of the things. And it was the thing that resonated the most with our clients. And so we said, let's write the book. And we did a program, a public seminar called the Go for No Retailer. And we were really sharing this message, but it was also infiltrating into different industries like network marketing and like just regular outside sales and insurance and financial people and you name it. Anyone who had to face failure, rejection, hearing no, what it was resonating with. And then we finally decided a few years into it, we said, this is like a thing. This is a movement. This is an idea that we could build a whole business around that, which seems absolutely insane. Who would want to build a business around failure?
Yeah.
but we have, because it really is. It's I think one of the many cornerstones of success is sticking with things and pushing through that failure in order to get your goals.
Wow, interesting. So of all those things that you were presenting back in those days, why is it that you think that this concept, which seems really simple, why do you think it resonated so much more than other things?
Yeah, well, you're right. It is a simple concept. And we were absolutely not the first people to come up with it. I think we were just the first people to kind of package it in a way that we took this little idea and really kind of blew it up. And we wanted to take this little idea and really examine it from every angle. And I think it probably resonated, one, because, a lot of sales training, they teach the whole process from beginning to end, and they kind of say, and by the way, you're going to be rejected, and just kind of get over it. And we say, no, let's stop the presses. Let's really talk about this issue, because this is so big. It's such a huge mindset and strategy. But when I look at the other things that we were teaching, customer service and management ideas, and other kind of general principles. This one was the counterintuitive one. And it was the one, I think, that when you apply it, when you just try it and you say, I'm going to try to get this person to say no to me a little bit more, people get results immediately. So it's not something where when you're teaching other important things like being consistent and coming up with a routine and being disciplined and all the things that we know are so important for success. Go for No is a very behavior-oriented strategy. It is about what you do. And so it can be implemented immediately. You can get results immediately. And I think that's why it resonates so much.
Yeah, and I think that's what really grabs me about it is there is, you really struck on something there that I think if you talk to folks in the profession of sales, especially sales managers, they'll tend to tell you the biggest limitation in getting their whole team to perform at their peak is just like you said, consistency. And most folks in sales are just simply not talking to enough people about what it is they do. And so that in and of itself, if it's getting people into action, that's got to be a very powerful thing. And I also would like to hear you tell a little bit more about what that does in terms of, just developing the skills of selling by virtue of taking more at-bats.
Yeah, it does absolutely build your skill. And I think that what happens is when we're protecting ourselves from hearing no. And so and this is like kind of where we all end up, where we all start, which is, okay, I don't want to hear no, which means I'm going to have to, by virtue of that, like try not to talk to a bunch of people because this person will say no and that person will say no. So we try to mind read and we try to figure out. And so we limit the quantity, as you said, which is important. I think most people don't talk to, it's just a sales reality that the numbers game. And I hate to just whittle it down to the numbers game because it's so much more complex than that. But certainly you have to be talking to enough people. And when you do start talking to enough people, what happens is you start learning so much. You start getting some patterns and some evidence, and you start saying, okay, this particular approach worked well, this particular approach didn't. If you talk to one person and they say no and the approach didn't go well, and you wait 2 weeks to talk to someone else, you have that's not enough evidence, right? It's like these, surveys that they do and the presidential, what do you call them? Oh, polls, right? It's like they have to poll 1,000 people to get enough data for it to make sense. If they ask 3 people, it's like, who knows what that is going to tell you. And so it really is about going out there, putting yourself out there and collecting that data. And Martin, this is so key. Because this underlies, and I actually did a survey in our course group about this, about what is it that people fear most? And it really, I was surprised. I thought for sure for most entrepreneurs it would be not making enough money, not making sales. That's what we fear, And actually it was people feared most looking stupid and embarrassing themselves in front of others.
Wow. Wow.
And so I think what happens is that people are so terrified of that, especially even strangers, or it doesn't matter, you're never going to see this person again. At best, the person will go home and tell their spouse, some crazy person approached me in the grocery store. I mean, that's the worst thing. And yet that is the biggest fear. And that's the thing that I think people have to be willing to go through that.
Yeah, it's fascinating that we will hold ourselves back from achieving the things that we really want in life, just because of that fear of looking stupid, right? It's, when you really think about it, it just seems ridiculous.
I know, yeah.
And you talk also that you kind of try to spell out that failure and being a failure are not one and the same. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I think what happens is that our identity gets wrapped up in, and sometimes we look for like validation in what we're doing. And by the way, I mean, this is all of the stuff that I talk about. I go through this. And then,
you still do?
Yeah. Yes, to a large extent. The one thing that I'm so excited about that I have conquered. I don't take no personally anymore, and we can talk about one of the tools that I use to do that. But yeah, just the idea that we're out there, we're putting ourselves out there, and we've all been taught and trained to avoid failure at all costs and avoid rejection. And so that is really the biggest kind of underlying programming, of the entire thing. And because we're biologically wired to avoid it. We're fighting biology here, which is the trickiest part. Absolutely.
So yeah, and given that it's biological, correct me if I'm wrong, but so it's part biological, but also it seems to me that from a very young age, we're also groomed. It's both nature and nurture.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, given how powerful the combination of the two, how do you, when you're coaching people to try to reverse that? What does it look like to actually try to put this into place and implement it into someone's professional career? Yeah,
well, it's actually is very simple, but it is not easy at all, because you are so right. You're fighting nature and nurture, and for a lot of us, we grew up trying to please other people. And if you're a member of the Pathological People Pleasers Club, like I am, founding member, right? So you that's kind of where you're coming from, and that part has to be broken down. So it's small pieces. And one of the strategies really is you have to give yourself permission to fail. You have to like reparent yourself almost and say, I'm going to encourage myself to fail. I'm going to encourage myself to try with absolutely no expectation. It's just like if you had a kid that you were teaching riding a bike, you would never embarrass them or never say like, I can't believe you fell off the bike again. I mean, we all know that's just part of the process, but we don't do that ourselves as adults. And so it's giving yourself permission to fail, sometimes over and over. And instead of embarrassing or feeling embarrassed, feeling ashamed, berating yourself, you have to kind of reparent yourself in a way that maybe wasn't done for you when you were young and impressionable and learning these lessons, where it was like, can't fail, have to people please, need to be perfect. Got to break some of that down.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, reparenting yourself.
Yeah. You'd like to think that was done now, but no.
No, it's good. It's just a good way to put it, because it reminds us to to be empathic, towards our own selves, and kind of be our own coach throughout the day.
Absolutely. We do have to be. And I like that you said that, because I think, and you probably, don't you agree that when you hear other people put themselves down or they're hard on themselves, we're so quick to say, oh my gosh, stop. You're being way too hard on yourself. But for us, It's like all of a sudden the standard becomes, no, we're up here. We need to be up here. And we don't have that same empathy or compassion.
Right. No, it comes off. It's almost jarring when you hear it coming from somebody else, and you want to, wrap your arms around them and say, come on, don't go there. Right. But we allow ourselves to do that to ourselves all the time. Most of us, I think.
Yeah.
And that brings up another question I had for you is, I think the reason that this work resonates so much with me is because I find it in my own life. I'm one that was, perennially avoiding rejection, avoiding no, and definitely suffering consequences for it. So it made me wonder, are there people that don't have this, that just kind of go through life and they're always 100% fearless? Do you come across people like that? Because it seems like it would, if they exist, they must be a small minority, I would think.
Yes, that's a great question, and it's one I rarely get asked. Yes, they are a small minority, and they always like pointing themselves out to me, which is really funny. So sometimes, like, I very specifically on a couple occasions, we have spoken to groups, and sometimes 1,000 people in the audience, and literally the one person will come up and say, I loved your presentation. It's absolutely much needed. I'm so glad everyone here got to hear it. I personally have no problem with hearing the word no. Never have had an innocent issue. No problem. And I would say, like, wow, well, you are in that top 1% that just, and I take them at their word for it, that, that they just don't, and it's not a problem. But they always are very supportive of the message, because they say everybody else does need this, but they are out there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned earlier that for yourself, you have a tool or tools that you use?
Yeah, one of my favorite books, in terms of taking no personally, and it's one of the four agreements is the name of the book, the 4 agreements. And in the 4 agreements, one of the agreements is to not take no personally, not take rejection personally, not take things personally. And it's super powerful, because you, in that book, learn how to appreciate, and even initially, and it sounds crazy, you have to over appreciate people's opinion and their rejection to such an extent that if you can really put yourself in their shoes and say, you know what, there's things that I don't like, and there's things that I detest and I hate. And so if this person just doesn't like me for whatever reason, and they don't like my product, and they don't like this or that, and they have all these issues, you put yourself in their position and you realize that it really is all about what is in their head, and it actually has nothing to do with you, even when it's about you.
Yeah.
And so that is so key. And when you can, and again, it's not easy, but when you can really appreciate that, and you have to remind yourself of your own biases. And those things that, think about the time when you were walking through an art festival and you saw a piece of art and you immediately said, horrible, no one would buy that, nobody should buy that, horrible. And yet someone else right next to you might be walking by saying, oh, wow, that's amazing, I would love to have that in my living room. When we really appreciate that, we can kind of detach from these perceived slights and hurts and just say it really is that person.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good way to put it. I love thinking about each of us as a work of art. Why not? We're all completely unique and different. So when you put it in that context, it really makes sense. So it seems like it's really a matter of just being able to, when you're in the moment, to be able to just take a pause, even if it's just a couple of seconds, to remind ourselves that, okay, this is one of those situations. That person's having a response to me. It's okay.
Yes, the pause is so important. It is inner work. It's all inner work. It's all mindset. There's not a lot of, besides going for no and actually taking some action, so much of it is what you think about in the moment, controlling your thoughts so that you can keep your feelings in that moment in check, so that your feelings don't allow you to spiral out of control. Because initially, when we get a piece of negative feedback, it stings immediately. It can't not sting, because that's the biology. But then immediately we have to start controlling our thoughts so that we can take our emotions down a different path. And the more you do that, and this is the work that I've done, the more I do that, the more I create that kind of new pathway to where I have the sting, but immediately I think of it the right way. I think of it differently, and then the feelings dissipate quickly, and I'm not reeling over. I mean, initially we would get like a negative review or something, and I would be thinking about it for days later, right? It would be like bothering me, and I can't believe it, and it was so horrible. And that rethinking takes work, takes time.
You hit on several things there that are just really golden nuggets. So one of the things that you were talking about is the sting of the rejection. And I find that, like, in the sales profession, there's the sting of the rejection, but then maybe equally important is the anticipation of the sting of the rejection. And so where that tends to show up, I think, is call reluctance. Most sales managers will tell you that, most of their people have difficulty just picking up the phone, just dialing and picking up the phone and talking to a human being, and most of that just boils down to the, uncertainty. What's going to happen? Am I going to know what to say? And then you start running through all these what if scenarios instead of just picking up the phone and dialing.
Right.
So it's call reluctance, where I think the anticipation of maybe there might be rejection. And then also in the sales call itself, many have difficulty at the end asking for the sale. And that seems to be another area where we're anticipating possible rejection. Can you talk a little bit more about that anticipation and how that can be maybe reprogrammed or rewired?
Yeah, that is, well, first of all, I love that you brought this up, because actually this is, it really is the, I think, foundation of where go for no becomes so important, is that anticipation. And I don't know that I put it into words like that, like you have just done. So thank you. I'm going to be stealing. I'm going to be stealing this. But yes, it is the anticipation, and we run through all the potentialities. And of course, the scenario is never positive, right? It's never, I'm going to get on the foot. Person's going to say, oh my gosh, thank God you called. I've been thinking about this for so long. And when that does happen every now and then, when someone actually does respond positively, it's almost like, what? Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
We're shocked.
Yeah, we're shocked. Thank God this person, because we're waiting for them to actually go like, why are you calling me? Do you have any idea, my day, you've interrupted me, blah, blah, blah. We play all these things, right? And I know this because I've done it too, like I do it too.
Yeah.
And so it is that anticipation. And it kind of comes back to that one. And I've heard other people talk about this, about how you've got to choose the scenario that, since you don't know what it's going to be, why don't you choose to think of it positively? And this brings up a really important point, Martin, which is, I think sometimes people think when they hear go for no that we are suggesting that you do want to literally hear no, like you really, really do. And this is where I think the challenge comes in, because we always say yes is the destination, but no is how you get there. So it's not that we're saying, yes, you want to do a horrible job and sabotage yourself and make bad calls. No, it's just the willingness to say, I might pick up the phone and I might fall on my face and the person might be annoyed or whatever, but I need to focus on the activity of going for no. The yeses are out there. Yes is my destination. Yes is what I want. So it, I think, is very important that we go into these interactions thinking positively. We do want to think positively, even though the no is a very potential reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I have heard that from people that I've discussed this book with, and I have to stop them and say, no, realize we're not trying to get a no 100% of the time. That wouldn't make sense. Right. We are, at the end of the day, we are in the business of selling something. So of course, we're going to have yes goals as well as no goals, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And we want, it's just about taking a negative reality and turning it positive. And I think there's mind games that you can play, and you can say, there's no such thing as rejection, which is actually true when we talk about kind of detaching and saying that rejection is from that other person. But let's not play games to say, don't worry about it and just get over it. And because when we do that, I think it doesn't honor what's really going on. And I think it makes people who really suffer from this feel defective or crazy. Like, wow, I'm the one person, everybody else seems to get over it and I can't. And so we're saying, no, your feelings are normal. Your feelings are, and the way you thought is based on your training and the way you were brought up, but it's not effective. So we need to change it. So let's take these negative realities and try to think positively.
Yeah, I think you're right on about that. I think it's really important to, when we're coaching others, to stress that whatever it is that person is feeling is real, it's genuine. And more importantly, and this is a concept in the book as well that I really love, is changing the duration at which you stay in the mindset of being affected by the no or the failure. Mm-hmm. And what I got from that was what we can do. This is another learned skill that over time, if hearing a rejection normally devastated you for the rest of the day, what we can start to work on is reducing that time span and getting it smaller and smaller. And the better skilled we become at that, the more success we're going to have. And a great example of this was at the end of this current NFL season. I live in New England, so pardon me if you're not a Patriots fan, I understand. But they are a great example because they are such a successful team, and mm-hmm. Tom Brady is one of the most successful quarterbacks of all time. I heard him interviewed. They lost their last game of the season this year, mm-hmm. which really changed everything for them in terms of the playoffs. It was completely unexpected. They lost to a much inferior team with a horrible record this mm-hmm. year, and it was at home. So no one expected this to happen. 2 days later, I heard an interview with Tom Brady, and the person asked him, how long did it take you to get over this loss? Because it was devastating. It was one of the biggest losses in decades around this part of the country. And he said, it took me 45 minutes, and then I was ready for next week. And I thought that's pretty incredible, and it really demonstrates this concept.
Yeah, I love that. That's interesting. I'm definitely I want to track down that interview because that's a great example. One of the mantras that we say is, and this is from Jack Canfield. He has this in his book, The Success Principles. Some will, some won't. So what? And then someone's waiting. And that's the fourth SW. And it's really key because you can't get to the someone's waiting if you're too busy dealing with and allowing the last thing that happened to, devastate you. And that goes for anybody. It goes for actors auditioning. I mean, you can imagine an actor these actors audition.
Yeah.
All day long, every day. They can't go to one audition, have them say, okay, no, get out, and then take a week off. They have to keep going. And it's every one of us.
Yeah, every profession.
Exactly.
So before I let you go, I really want to talk more about how this work evolved. And eventually, you wrote another book, Go for No. This one was Go for No for network marketing. Why was it important to write a book specifically for that industry?
Yeah, we had wanted to do that for a long time, but we're not network marketing experts, despite the fact that I think some people read Go for No and they assume it's a network marketing book, which is interesting to me because we didn't write it for network marketing, the original one. But there's so many, obviously the lessons are so huge for anyone in direct sales or network marketing, but we did finally decide we have so many people in that profession who are reading Go for No and love it. Maybe we could offer them something deeper. And so we've asked Ray Higdon, who had used Go for No very successfully in his prospecting while he's very big on creating a marketing engine and getting out there and producing content and building a brand. But he also teaches that, you need to get out there and be prospecting. Otherwise, you might be doing this stuff forever. And this is going to really help you get going, and you've got to be good at it. And so anyway, he really practiced Go for No and became very successful because of it. So we asked him, let's take some of our core Go for No concepts and get your take on how you apply these to network marketing. And also we interviewed 17 people who were top leaders or trainers in the industry and said, give us a Go for No story. Tell us your story about just how you've used the idea of these, of failure and overcoming it and rejection. So we're very proud of the book. In fact, the ratings on it are just fantastic. We're so glad that it's made such a good impact on people.
It's a phenomenal book. It's one of my favorites, and I go to it often. And I really wanted to bring that up because a lot of folks in my audience are network marketers. So I think that this is going to be great for them to hear. I can't recommend the book enough for anyone who's a network marketer. I believe it'll change a lot of how you view what you do on a daily basis. And the other thing that I really wanted to learn from you is we've kind of gone through a little bit of a history of the work, and what are you up to these days? What's current? Who are you working with? What projects? What have you not done that you still want to do?
Well, we finally, it's funny because I need to go back. The summer before last, so August of 2018, finally produced a course online. I knew that was something that was so needed because we had physical products. Because once people read the book, it's like, well, what else is there? And so we finally got an online course, which I'm very proud of. And more than probably even the course, which is great training. It's very much no fluff, the core concepts that you need. And I've done some other fun things, like one of the modules I always wanted to create, which I did for this course, is Go for No and the law of attraction, and we talked a little bit about that, how to kind of reconcile the idea that you want to be, what are you putting out? Are you putting out no's? And so that was something fun that I was able to create. And within that course, I have a private Facebook group and I do daily notification. So it is really every day I post something to think about, some kind of, whether it's a quote or an article or video or something interesting for people to keep Go for No top of mind, because it is easy to slip out of it. And it's easy to just kind of forget that, hey, failure's okay. Don't go back to protective mode. Keep going for no, keep pursuing that in your life. And so that's just been a fun project. It's hard to believe I've been doing that every day for basically a year and a half, but I do love it.
Nice. And is there one success story that you could share that you think really demonstrates where someone started from, real struggle and then implemented these concepts and, was able to really transform their career?
Gosh,
there's probably so many, I'm sure.
There is so many, and I really should know them better.
Yeah.
I should, there's so many different.
You and Richard, you have your own success story using these concepts, right?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And over the years, and when we fall back and get, when we're not paying attention, Rich will say something to me and he'll be like, well, we have to do this and we have to do that. And we have to ask this person. And I go like, we have to, so let's go for no. We're the Go for No people. Yeah. Come on, we got to live this. But one of my favorite stories actually was last summer. A guy named Leo Quinn, who's a marketer. He does all kinds of things. He's not a network marketer per se, but just a general marketer of different business tools and things. And he had his summer of 1,000 no's. And he made it his mission to get 1,000 no's last summer. I can't remember when he started, but I know we ended up talking at the end of August, and he got his final 1,000 no, and did end up, he attributed, I think the revenue was over $3,000, and which he attributed directly to that challenge. But more than anything was just his, how he changed his perspective and how much easier it became for him to go out and get rejected and get those no's, because I think that was a big part of his mission in doing that, was not just the results, although he wanted them, but can I change my mindset around this? Because he really didn't like hearing no, and he did have fear, and he did have anxiety around it. And so he really put it to the test. That's probably the biggest one in recent time. But yeah, we have a lot of great success stories.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you have time. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that question.
No, not at all, not at all. But I should have more.
No, that's great stuff. So, but before we say goodbye, so is there anything I haven't touched on that you think my audience really ought to know about this, or what would be your parting thought to leave with us all today?
Well, my parting thought is always the same, I have to admit, and it is to go for no all the time, not just in business. So practice it in your daily life. Get used to try asking for things. So that is one of the things Leo did. He had his business no's, but he was also out there just trying crazy things, asking, for upgrades and hotels and on the airplane and things like that. And I think when we do that in less threatening circumstances, asking for an extra bag of peanuts on Southwest or something, you say like, well, who cares? But you're building that ask muscle. You're building that courage where you're, even for some people, that little shot of anxiety, like, oh, this person's going to think I'm being pushy or whatever, just to get it, just to do it. And you see, it's not so scary.
That's a great reminder. Yeah. And it's good to be reminded that this stuff shows up in all aspects of our life. If you're a single person and you're in the dating scene, that's another big place of anxiety around this. Yeah. So many different parts of our life. Andrea, I really want to thank you for your generosity and sharing your time with us and your wisdom and knowledge. And this has just been wonderful. I think full of value for the audience. Where can people find you if they're looking for more?
Oh, yeah. Goforno.com. So easy. GOFORNO.com. Yes.
Right. And I assume you're on all the various social platforms.
All the channels. Yes. But thank you, Martin. This was super fun. And I really liked your questions. They were really interesting and insightful. And so it was fun for me to pull out, some of the things that are in my head that I don't share as often.
Okay. Well, Andrea Waltz, again, thank you so much. Best-selling author, speaker, entrepreneur. It's been a complete pleasure and honor to be with you here today. And thank you for joining us. My name's Martin Meisenheimer. We'll see you next time.